I was wrong about God of War, and I want to go ahead and recontextualize that. I was wrong about Kratos. God of War is one of those franchises that I always heard about. It was always met with people talking about the gameplay and how great Kratos was as a character, and how brutal it was, and how it was truly a next generation game, and how you got to see so much blood and gore and how crazy all that was. And throughout the years, God of War grew a larger fan base, but I was never a part of that overarching fan base. I was always just kind of there, witnessing the games from a distance, not really paying attention to them all too much, and kind of just going, yeah, that's not my game. But there's a lot of times where you grow up, and while some games are much, much too easier, or much too linear, or just not good at all when you grow up, there have been a lot of games that I realized I really enjoy that I otherwise didn't back when I was either a kid or a teenager, and now enjoy much more as an adult. Games like Bloodborne, when the game came out, and I just didn't click with it, but give it a few years, and now I'm on NG+5 and platinuming the game and talking about how much I adore it, and it's one of my favorite games of all time. So change is possible. God of War 2018 is what I would like to call a diamond in the rough for me. As you already have heard, I'm not the biggest fan of God of War and never ever had an interest, but somehow, from people that I've known talking to me about this game, what I've seen on the internet, I finally decided to cave in, and this year, finally, 100% God of War 2018. And I didn't set out to play the game 100%. That should already be pretty telling, but I went out of my way and 100%ed God of War. I have the Platinum Trophy, I saw everything that the game had to offer, I did everything the game had to offer, I enjoyed my time thoroughly. There are moments that were high, there were moments that were low, there was a huge drive to just see everything in this world and from all the other realms, and I genuinely loved playing the game. The gameplay itself, while not being super robust in terms of its action, hack-and-slash combat, much like other games that I love within that genre, like Devil May Cry or Bayonetta, it's still pretty satisfying. The gameplay just has this crunch and weight to it, like this visceral weight to whenever you go ahead and hit an enemy with the axe. Oh my goodness, it's so gratifying, weirdly. And I mean, I enjoyed playing the game. Like I looked forward to combat encounters. I looked forward to seeing what new areas I get to explore, because while yes, it is a hack and slash combat game, it is also one of these PlayStation AAA games. That means there is a it's built on exploration and trying to wow you with how pretty the game looks. And believe me, it's pretty. And I play this on PS5, so probably even prettier than a lot of people saw on base PS4. The game is beautiful, it runs like a dream, and it was one of those experiences of just being able to explore all these realms was so enticing, and having to do it with Atreus, which being Kratos' son, it was even better. It felt like this father-son bonding trip that I was just kind of witnessing and getting to be a part of. And it really ties into why the narrative of this game is so good. Story-wise, God of War has always been one of those games that I kind of heard that there was some deeper meaning behind what was going on with how visceral and brutal the combat was, but to be quite honest with you, I never really looked too deep into most of the story. I mean, I wasn't interested in God of War, so why would I? But the narrative in this reboot is something that pulled me in from the jump. I had so many expectations, and I want to be honest and straightforward, they were all met, and Santa Monica Studios nailed it out the park with this game's story. Instead of course, being the God of War, you are just Kratos, a, man with a lot of resentment towards his past and a lot of the things that he has done throughout the previous games. And he wants to go ahead and reprimand that, and the only way he sees fit is to take care of his son Atreus and to go on this journey to go ahead and set the ashes of Atreus' mother and his wife's ashes, basically put them at the top of the highest mountain, and that alone is the journey. The thing about that really drew me in was the very introduction of the game. The introduction of the game builds all you need to know within just a few minutes. The game wants you to not know enough, but also know little bits of pieces as the story progresses. It opens up its world gradually. It doesn't just give you an all-access pass, and something about just being able to witness Atreus and Kratos bond together is so special. Almost like how people loved Joel and Ellie of The Last of Us, Kratos and Atreus are a pair that I did not expect to deeply care about as much as I did. A father and son pairing is something that you see in a lot of media, a lot of movies, a lot of books, a lot of games, but it's done extremely well here, despite how whimsical you might think a God of War game is. And I mean whimsical in the more brutal sense. It's much more fantasy-esque setting, or mythological. There's a lot more mythical stuff going on in a God of War game. Typically there's a lot more finesse, a lot more theatrical moments that are on a much higher scale than, say, something like The Last of Us. I think the bond that these two characters share in the early moments, in some of the middle of the game moments, and especially at the end, there's some real growth between both characters and how they react to one another throughout the game, and how their bond increasingly grows as you progress. And that alone is super powerful and something that really spoke to me at an early point. From being able to help Atreus hunt his first deer to then immediately being ambushed by a giant ogre and having to go ahead and basically fight immediately. And it proves that everything in this world is after them in some sort of way, whether it being Draugrs, whether it being other gods, whether it being, again, other enemies like ogres and wolves. Enemies in this game are after Kratos and are after Atreus by association, and it's quite a interesting story, and it's quite an interesting way to go ahead and build this journey up and make it more intense and make the stakes higher. And there are moments that just really grip you, that really pull you into the story, and just you completely are, it's just you in the game. And that happened to me on so many accounts. And there were moments that I was just genuinely screaming and being extremely excited about everything that was going on. And there were moments that were somber and I was getting emotional, and it really just got a lot out of me. It got me out of my seat. It really made me face adversity in this game's story. It made me face something that I didn't think I wanted to face, and that was just, change. And a lot of people are probably going to go, well, you didn't play God of War. You can't be not wanting to face this. You would probably want change to happen. And yeah, I did. But, there are times where it was scary. It was really scary to witness that. And they put that on full display with how Atreus grows. And they also put that on display with how Kratos can get at times. And they put that on display with other characters as well. And, to grow also does mean to sacrifice. And there are quite a hefty amount of sacrifices that have to be made throughout this game, and it is an experience unlike any other that I've had in a narrative driven game, and let alone a AAA PlayStation game that is not Bloodborne or The Last of Us. So it's special, it's significant, and everything felt super emotionally driven and exciting, and it felt new. And granted, replaying the game, I'm going to see the story beats and still appreciate the game, but that first playthrough matters so much. And the whole point of this game is just change, and how, conquering impossible odds and doing what seems to be impossible, and witnessing that while also seeing a bond between Kratos and his son, and also seeing a completely different side to Kratos, who I used to just kind of almost resent back then because of how brutal and visceral the game used to be when I was younger. It's quite substantial, and it does its job being this rebooted, redone version of what God of War was, and it doesn't stray away from hiding its past either. God of War does not hide its past. Kratos doesn't hide his past except to Atreus, but you know it's there. Everyone knows it's there. Being able to experience the growth between both these characters and every other side character and even main character that are in this game was special. It's such a beautiful, beautiful game that I highly recommend and did not expect to fall in love with as hard as I did. And it's probably one of those experiences I'm going to treasure for a long time. I don't really have much else to say, so I will see you guys in the next video. Stay safe out there, treat yourself, tell people you love them, and drink some water, alright? Take it easy.